I am always happy when I'm with you, and can remember being in this room with many of you just about 18 months ago. Before I start, I want to introduce my colleague, Jeremy Paley, who many of you haven't met yet, and Jeremy is the Gates Foundation's new program officer for Lithuania, as well as many other things he's working on. So, Jeremy, can you just stand up so people can see your face? Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge you'll meet soon our grantees from our grantee from Latvia, Christina, and Chris from the University of Washington. But also I know that my friends and colleagues and grantees from Poland, Jacek and Maciek, are here somewhere. So I'm sure they'll love to tell you stories about Poland later on. So this is actually my third time in Lithuania. And like many of the people and the grantees who are associated with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a lot of what I learned about my work came from Lithuania, as well as from your neighbor in Latvia. These two countries, along with Chile, are a resounding success in our program that have changed the strength and the wisdom of the country, of the villages and cities, and of your people. I'm in Lithuania to celebrate with you, as I was in Latvia just a few months ago, to celebrate this important milestone toward the end of our grant relationship. And I want to celebrate with you by asking you to do what I like to do best, and that is rolling up your sleeves and planning to not think that the work is over that you're doing, but to work hard now and into the future to sustain this incredible success story. The story that, if you hadn't known it before, you're going to hear about again and again. And I really am so pleased that this Libraries for Innovation report is in English, because I've been struggling to want to know more details in that succinct way. So it's a great success story. So I think some of you know I've been a librarian for almost 40 years now. And in spite of this, I'm probably the world's most corny librarian. And I never stop being touched by the stories that I hear about the changes that we're working on and making in people's lives. On the surface, these stories sound very similar. They remind me of some of the stories I saw in my career as a children's librarian in a rural part of a very small part of the United States, or as a librarian leading a very large urban library system in the United States. The stories about the elderly people who can't connect with their children who live abroad. The story about young men or young people who are kind of lost in life and find a purpose. The librarians who have been reborn and discovered the joy of serving their and our communities. I love meeting with these librarians, or as a librarian, I love meeting with the patrons and seeing the way libraries have changed our lives. The stories in Lithuania are among some of the most touching. I had heard from my colleagues in Lithuania one story about Skype, but then we saw this great story about Skype in your wonderful new video that I can't wait to put on Facebook and watch it go viral. So as soon as I can get it up, I want to do that. But I sat there, thinking that I could never get more emotional about libraries, watching that grandmother, meeting her grandchildren, and dancing. And I just sat there and I thought, oh my God, I can't stand up. I'm still just have these tears under my eyes about how happy that made me as a librarian and as a mother, and maybe someday grandmother. I heard a story from my colleagues in Lithuania about a young man who was living in a city and was unable to find work or to find anybody to do one of his most passionate things with, and that was play chess. So rather than succumb to drugs, which I'm told is what happens to a lot of young people without work in that village, he went to the library. And at the library, he found many chess partners that he began playing with around the world. What's cool is that, in addition, one of the people he discovered was a chess player who lived just a couple of blocks away that he got to then play with and hang out with, as well as becoming friends with an elderly chess champion who was playing in the library in the computer right next to him. But it's really many of you and the other thousands of librarians in Lithuania that I want to acknowledge and celebrate. I want to acknowledge the way you've had to change your life. When most of us went into libraries, we had no idea how the world was going to change. We had no idea that we were going to have to learn these new tools. And you've done it. And you've done it in a simply incredible way. And I really want to acknowledge what that means. One librarian I heard described it that she felt she was now high above the ground when she learned to use the computer and begin sharing this knowledge. I want to mention that the pictures behind you that you're seeing, I should have said it at the very beginning, are from our grantees all over the world, from more than about 20 different countries and different programs that are on. So, and I love this work. So, just in case you were wondering if these were all Lithuanians that you hadn't met yet. In 2008, when Lithuania began the Libraries for Innovation program, nobody really could have known if this was going to be successful. There were so many unanswered questions at the time. Probably the most important was, would government support and fund the project? The next was about the librarians. Were they going to embrace the kinds of changes that they had been asked to embrace? And then there's the library users who too often don't have enough expectations for what libraries can be. Would they come to the libraries? Would they believe that we had made this kind of radical change that would make libraries even more relevant in their lives? And I'm happy to know that the answer to all of these questions is a resounding yes. And I'd like to say that that's true also in the other countries that we work in, when government makes a decision and recognizes that libraries are the important and powerful institution they are, and that nobody can do what we do better than libraries do. In Lithuania, from the very beginning, the Ministry of Culture has given its full support to this project and upheld its co-funding commitments. And you all know this, but in Lithuania, as much as anywhere else in the world, the economic crisis that was being felt was a little frightening to us at the foundation, because we didn't know if the government would be able to keep its co-commitment, and it did. And because what the government and its partners understood is that without access to information, free information, and the tools that were needed to survive in this dramatically changing world, the Lithuanian people would have been severely constrained. But it wasn't just national government that understood the importance of libraries and access to information. It was the local governments as well. The mayors, municipal councils, administrators, and the governments in every area. In fact, 100% of all municipalities in Lithuania agreed to participate in the Libraries for Innovation project and have given it their full support. Now, that didn't happen by accident. It happened because there was a great advocate in the Libraries for Innovation team. And the first time I met Kęstutis, I heard about how he was regularly out talking to the mayors of all those municipalities. So this doesn't happen all by itself. But it's because of the local governments and the work that maybe Kęstutis started, but that the librarians worked on, and that the other supporters in the villages and cities, that Lithuania can now boast a 97% coverage rate to the internet. Government partnerships were essential, but so were partnerships within the private sector. The Kaunas County Public Library showed a remarkable talent for imaginative projects with businesses. I liked the one about how they worked and involved themselves in the renovation of benches in a park. Libraries, benches, how does that make sense? Well, this was done with city government and the Lithuanian Telecommunication Company, and the renovated benches are being used to organize gaming competitions, reading promotions, and digital awareness. We talk a lot about partnerships when it comes to libraries, and we talk about working together. I find that librarians want very much to feel that we're not alone, that we're part of a larger community that cares about public libraries and free access to information, just like the librarians do. It's one of the things that keeps us going, especially in these times of deep budget cuts and economic uncertainty. I was recently talking to a librarian in the United States, and I totally got what she said when she said that what bothered her most about the library, about the budget cuts to her library, wasn't that she'd have to do more with less. We've been having to learn that for a long time. She could handle that. What bothered her was feeling that government didn't understand the library, didn't understand the importance of what the library could do. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe money is quite important. It's critical to our library's functioning. But what's just as important is the caring and believing that our libraries are necessary and vibrant and relevant centers of learning, that the public good and the social intercourse that comes through libraries can't be found anywhere else in a community. Lithuanian librarians understand that in order to be seen as relevant, it's still going to take more than money. It's going to mean that libraries need to change. But you and librarians everywhere have embraced those technological advantages and advances that have come to your libraries. It doesn't happen automatically, but it happens because of those partnerships that say we're going to invest in libraries so that you can have the opportunity to show those changes. We realize in libraries that our goal is to give users information and services that we need to accomplish our objectives and improve lives. And we understand that also that those tools, which might seem daunting at first, and I'll give you a great example I saw a year ago of a daunting. Libraries in Turkey were so scared about the new technology that they put them in glassed rooms behind locked doors so people could see them like a museum, but couldn't touch them and break them. I mean, sometimes it's scary when we get those new pieces of technology. But in spite of that, I think that we have that tenacity and we press on and we grow and we learn. I think that in Lithuania, librarians are also understanding that having technology isn't a threat to the library of the past, it's an enhancement. I used to say that in libraries, we've really learned how to hold on to the best of the past, but really reach forward into the future. A person might come to the library and be looking for a particular book. Well, maybe that book isn't in your language, or maybe it's checked out, or maybe it's misshelved so you can't find it. But if the library doesn't have it, they can often find it online. Or alternately, someone who comes to use a computer and doesn't even think about that they want a book will see an interesting book on the table or on a shelf, and before you know it, they check that out. So traditional services are not neglected, and I am beginning to say more and more that the mission of the library has not changed. What's just changed is the technology we're using. So books, technology, gaming, yoga classes, this is what today's modern library is all about. But in spite of all of that, in Lithuania, the checkout of books has risen about 3% in the last few years. One of my good friends, someone who I used to be a teacher for and now is teaching me, was recently named the head, the commissioner of the Chicago Public Library. His name is Brian Bannon, and prior to coming to Chicago, he was the chief technology or the chief information officer of the San Francisco Public Library. So when Brian, who's quite young, came to lead this major urban library system in the United States, the press and the citizens who were skeptical about this young guy said, oh, he's a technology guy. And many people were concerned that this young techie would abandon books and get rid of the popular one book, one city program that happens in many cities around the world where the whole city reads a book together. Brian reassured him that he would do no such thing. He insisted to everyone that he's not the technology guy, but that he was the librarian guy. And as much as he's embraced technology to take public libraries into the 21st century, he sees technology as a means to an end. As he put it, we can leverage technology to create a great experience for readers. But more than that, Brian believes, as I do, that it isn't really about which of these tools, books or technology, but it's about connecting people with knowledge. The libraries of Lithuania are similarly committed to providing the greatest possible experience to your readers, and they'll use all the tools they can to do it. What other programs and services might a person find when they wander into a Lithuanian library? Well, I discovered that a lot of us have had the opportunity to go to Utenis, and I went there myself about 4 years ago. But more recently, they'll find children playing an innovative educational computer game called The Challenger. These are kids who previously skipped school so they could go to the library to play typical computer games, a little bit like you were saying, but I don't think you said you skipped school, did you? Now they go after school hours to play the game that's linked to their curriculum. An impact assessment, an analysis of the Play to Study project, found that students' grades are improving and fewer children are now missing school. Now the Ministry of Education Science wants to expand the program and implement the game in more districts. In Kaunas, you might find seniors, this is where I learned about practicing yoga. And that is part of the library's Biblio Health Service, which promotes healthy lifestyle among people of many ages, including the elderly, my age, over 60, by providing ICT training that helps them find health information online, as well as practical activities, such as yoga and other relaxation exercises. Elsewhere, and this is true in Vietnam and in Latvia and Lithuania and Mexico, farmers are being trained how to use smartphones to improve their work. They use mobile devices to access a web portal where they can share information and communicate with each other. They advertise and sell their produce through an online market and utilize a desktop publishing center to design and print leaflets and business cards to promote their goods. It's cutting-edge projects like these that help prove that the libraries of today are doing amazing things. It's no surprise that Lithuania has exceeded our expectations. Of course, if you didn't know, I'm somewhat biased because I'm part Lithuanian. But the foundation chose Lithuania before I came there. But it was quite purposeful for the foundation to choose Lithuania as one of our first grantee libraries outside the US, because we felt that you had the commitment to libraries at your government level, the skills, determination, and commitment to bring your library system to a level that rivals any other country in the world. An example of how Lithuania served as a mentor to other countries comes from Ukraine. When the Ukrainian library system needed to convince the government, who didn't quite get why they should invest in libraries, to support its Library 21 program, they called on our friend Kęstutis, as well as our friend Armāns from Latvia, and they asked them to come to Kyiv to testify about the great successes that have been achieved in Latvia and Lithuania. Kęstutis spoke himself about the two countries' shared history and about coming from the same Soviet tradition and facing many of the similar challenges, especially with libraries that hadn't necessarily been supported in the past. Once Ukrainian officials heard about the dramatic resurgence of libraries in Latvia and Lithuania, they decided to give $18 million over 5 years to fund Library 21. $18 million in US money to fund the libraries of Ukraine. Pretty incredible. But they did it because they found inspiration and motivation in what you have done here, a feeling that anything is possible. Now, Library 21 is on the path toward making Ukrainian libraries lively community centers, just like they are here. And they're forging partnerships with government to ensure they have the funding and support that they need to succeed. No wonder Kęstutis has been named digital champion for Lithuania by the European Commission. I don't know that I've had the opportunity to congratulate you publicly, so hooray for you for that honor. I have no doubt that you're going to become a catalyst for the expansion of internet access and digital inclusion throughout the world, and we're holding you to that. Now that Libraries for Innovation is ending its 4-year project, at the Foundation we ask, as we do elsewhere as our programs end, will this great effort continue? Well, I think that the answer is pretty clearly yes. First, as I keep talking about, it's the librarians who have changed the way they work. There's also been a fundamental change, as we'll hear about more from the report, about the way the public is using the library and the way they see that it can solve their problems and improve their lives. And the public officials are now also seeing libraries as being relevant. As one mayor put it, progress without libraries is impossible. Librarians are realizing also that they've got to be better advocates for themselves. They need to let people know what they're doing and why they're doing it. And libraries need to continue to improve their data collection so they can inform policy decisions. And they need to engage with journalists and the media so that they can promote their cause. Libraries for Innovation has already made significant efforts towards sustainability. Kęstutis talked about them earlier, so I'll only be brief, but to say that I'm very excited and the Foundation is very excited about the National Plan of Lithuania for the implementation of the Information Society Development Program. I'm sure it sounds a little different in Lithuanian. I stumble over it in English. But that program includes funds for renewing computer equipment at public workstations and in training labs. And these funds will be available through 2019. Also, and I know the National Librarian is here, the National Library of Lithuania has agreed to sustain the central services such as the user registration and statistics system, the website and training materials, and the interactive encyclopedia. Software upgrades and the renewal of server infrastructure are also in place. And importantly, training for librarians is set to continue. Public relations and outreach activities are being scheduled, and continued impact assessment is being planned as the tools are adapted. Of course, challenges remain, but we need to keep in mind, and I hope you know that you're not alone in facing these challenges. The challenges that you're facing in Lithuania are the same ones librarians are facing in the United States, as well as the librarians of Botswana and Mexico and elsewhere in the world. We're all struggling to keep pace with the technological advances that happen at a breakneck speed. We look for new ways to serve our users, to keep them engaged and to stay relevant in their lives. And we're constantly looking for funding to support our work. No one ever said this was going to be easy. But what keeps me going, and I think what keeps all of us going, is the firm knowledge that what we're doing matters. In a forthcoming letter that Bill Gates is writing to the heads of state of our five grantees countries that are in the European Union, he says that over the last 20 years, we've seen a technological revolution in information and communication technology that's changed the way we live and work. Bill says that this type of innovation is key to improving the world. But he also notes that 90% of the world's population is still excluded from the benefits of these advances. And in Lithuania, as much as we have to be proud of, and I heard Kęstutis referring to this, and we talked about it yesterday with Parliament, we still have 32% of the population that's excluded, and that's just not acceptable for any of you, for Bill Gates, or for me. We believe that everyone should have the opportunity to participate in the digital age and improve their lives. But this is really what you're working toward. And already you've achieved so much, so incredibly much. So I want to take this moment. I don't know how many more times I'll have the opportunity to stand in front of the leaders of the libraries and of the villages in Lithuania and thank you for what you've done and tell you that I'm looking forward to your future and know that it'll be filled with even greater achievements. So on behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I look forward to continuing our work together because the foundation never quite says goodbye to any of the people that it's fallen in love with and grown committed to. I look forward to not only continuing our work, but witnessing your incredible achievements and learning as much from you as I can. And I also look forward to this conference because indeed you have shown in Lithuania that by making changes in libraries, you are now making changes in society. And nobody does it better than libraries and librarians. Thank you.